Echo Lima 87. This is 100 watts and a wire.
Well, hello and welcome to 100 Watts and a Wire. It's Christian. My call sign is Kilo Zero Sierra Tango Hotel. Welcome to episode number 414. Amateur radio amplified right here on 100 Watts and a Wire. This podcast has been kicking it since 2015. And this weekend, it is the Huntsville Hamfest. Yeah, Alabama style. Now, I've been invited to go, but I never have been. And I can tell there's plenty of representation in the ham radio content community. Several YouTubers are there providing live streaming coverage, which is very interesting to me. I poke around a lot just to see what's going on. And I got to say, W5KUB has been one of those fun ones to watch over the years, even before I started live streaming. I mean, he would be driving down to whatever Hamfest he was going to cover, and then he'd stop at like a restaurant in the parking lot. Next thing you know, he's chilling and gone for a while. You know, he's in there eating the sides of okra that you can get, because I couldn't find. He went to Cracker Barrel, I think, one year, and I tuned in from work, right? Whatever this could have been Dayton Hamvention. And old boy went into Cracker Barrel to eat, and I remember thinking to myself, I guess there's plenty to eat if you eat meat, whatever. I went to Cracker Barrel one year and couldn't find a vegetable. It's like, I think we got a side of okra, maybe some mixed veg into that. Like, yeah, it's all I got. Give it to me. Anyway, KUB doing the live stuff, and I've always appreciated he would set up a, camera in the corner and show the room, if you will. Always gathered prizes to give away on site, and I think even to the people who were watching. So it's a lot of work. Congratulations to Tom and all the folks that are considered YouTubers in the ham radio community out there providing live coverage. I don't miss YouTube live coverage for 100 Watts and a Wire. I love to live stream, and anything that I will do that needs to be featured video-wise, live streaming-wise, it's going to funnel back to my personal page, which is just my name, Christian Kudnick. And as I've mentioned before, there are priorities that are definitely on the front burner in my life right now, with a family, finding work in Sarasota, Florida, keeping things afloat. So the 100 Watts and a Wire podcast is sustained by the community, sustained by our sponsors, which is much appreciated. But snapping off and going to a ham fest, actually buying anything right now, it's completely controlled. It's got to feed the family. Thank goodness that Mama is working and steadily working hard, and we can do it. I'm pushing, trying to make things happen. Making new contacts and friends here. Well, acquaintances, I imagine. I don't know. You meet people here in your neighborhood. You meet people who are in the business sector, nonprofits, art organizations, and you just try to build from there. That's what I'm doing. So there you go. But this weekend, Huntsville Hamfest in Huntsville, Alabama. And I've always heard that this is an interesting one because it's in a large air conditioning space, or air-conditioned space, so you don't melt like we've been doing here in Florida. Luckily, for the last, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, at some point during the day, we get a storm rolls through. And I know people who have lived here before were like, yeah, it usually happens, especially in the rainy season. But for weeks on end, man, I can tell you, we've not received much by way of rain. until this week. And now we're good. We're good. It's working. Hopefully the small gardens will start to grow. Yesterday, I received in the mail an antenna from MFJ. Thank you, Rich, for supplying that. Listening here to what 2 meters and 440 are doing. Now, I'm in Florida. If you're just joining the show, welcome to it. We appreciate you being here. I lived for 20 years in Missouri, just north of St. Louis. And I was spoiled, if you will. I was able to have 8 antennas up, multiple directions. I never had a tower, but I had an antenna garden. Mama took a job down here in Sarasota, Florida. Hence my rebuilding, restructuring, figuring out things, meeting people, looking for new work in the field that I am in. But what is really cooking down here is 2 meters. I mentioned it last week. 2 meters and 440 are the jam down here. And I think it's because the backdrop here is that of a hurricane zone. So the club I belong to is actually an emergency club. Not Aries, but an emergency club. The Sarasota Emergency Radio Club. That's that. There is an Aries team associated with Sarasota, associated with the club. And I can tell you that they're very active, and I'm inspired by that activity. Multiple nets, all kinds of stuff happening. And 2 meter and 440 are cooking down here. I remember doing shows over the years talking about how the repeaters in that area back in St. Louis were mostly dead. There could be an occasional weekly net happening, or a weekly net happening on a Wednesday or a Thursday, usually a club net and an Aries net. But you could scan. I used to go and hit scan on all the shows. I mean, all the frequencies and all the repeaters. During my show, nothing would happen. You'd hear a tone like we just heard here, or you might hear an ID. People talking? Nah. So MFJ sent me this big ass 10-foot tall 2 meter 440 antenna, supposed to get you like 6 dB of gain. And I've mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I found on the side of the road, probably 18-foot, maybe even 20-foot piece of bamboo that had, fallen over or whatever, had been left, cut and left there on the side. And this is a walking community. People are walking around all the time. And I saw it. I'm like, it has a slight bend in it, like some stuff has bends, but nothing major, right? But I thought, it looks natural. Let me grab this and mount up an antenna to it. And I put it up there, right? It's been singing. So yesterday, in between the raindrops, I decide this MFJ antenna, it's 10 feet tall. I probably would prefer to have a smaller one in my truck in the back. So in case I need to deploy or run from the water, hide from the wind, whatever we're doing, because the majority of my interest in amateur radio sits on the emergency communication side. And that's a discussion between hams that are like, we're at a whole different situation here now with that. What our role is, and that's true, perhaps more of an auxiliary role. But the role down here now is communication for the Red Cross, communication within institutions like hospitals, building networks with local radio broadcast stations. There are things that we can do, and I see it more here than I did back in the St. Louis area. No shade to those folks, but you take a may happen to a this will happen. We need to prepare and plan and test. So MFJ sends this antenna, and I'm looking for the number of it. But if you looked up big ass 2 meter 440 antenna, 10 feet long, it's sections, you got to kind of screw it together on a couple of different spots. Well, I brought down the first one off the bamboo and it was perfectly fine. I'm thinking, let's go ahead and put this 10 footer up here. And I'm trying to stay kind of stealth like, man. I'm not trying to be seen, if you will. It is enough that I've got a off-center fed dipole up there. And the coax, it's $213. I brought it from Missouri, of course, because it's expensive. It's $1 or more a foot. And I've had it for years. It works fine. But it drops down right in the center of my yard. And I'm trying to keep it kind of stealthy. So sitting a 10-foot antenna up into a tree may not have been the best idea, but I'm like, screw it. We're going to go for it. Let's try it out and let's see what happens. So I did. I bring it down. And wouldn't you know, the hardware on this 10-footer just won't go with, the bamboo. It's too much. It's too big. It won't tighten down. And I'm like, sugar. Now you might be saying to yourself, see, child, why didn't you just use the hardware from the shorter antenna? I think that one is a diamond. I want to say a diamond, but perhaps not. It could be something else. I don't know. I'll let you know. I'm just not remembering, but it's much smaller. I mean, we're talking maybe 2 or 3 feet antenna. Does perfectly fine on its own, but I wanted to try this 10-foot job. Well, the mounting brackets didn't work. They just didn't connect well enough. And I said, you know what, man? I don't know. The radials are much longer. They're like 12 to, 18 inches, 3 of them, compared to the shorter ones of the shorter antenna. Long story wrapping up here. I had to take it all back down. It didn't work. Couldn't get the brackets to work. And it's not a slight to anything. Anybody, nothing at all. It's just the brackets didn't work, and I'm attaching to a piece of bamboo, man. What this would have worked better with is maybe some of that military aluminum that you can buy in 4-foot sections. It would have affixed itself better to that. But so what I did is I ended up putting the original one back up there and called it a day. But that was just a piece of what I have been working on this week between the raindrops. Also, I'm doing a little bit of listening on HF because I love it. I always said that, I love HF so much that I could not possibly take on a digital mistress over the years. And I haven't really. I did a little D-Star. Now I'm mostly listening 2-meter 440, checking into the nets where I can, becoming active, I'm curious to see what I can reach on simplex, what I can reach on the repeaters. When I'm in the mobile, I like to see what I'm hearing strong. I'm just figuring things out in this geography here. One thing I did want to share with you, first of all, let me send a thank you out to Bioenno Power. If you're looking for that power solution, check out Bioenno Power. They offer the best lithium phosphate batteries for your ham radios. Visit bioennopower.com. That's BIOENNO power.com. And just a reminder, if you find value in the 100 Watts in a Wire community, whether it's Facebook, Discord, this podcast, the weekly nets, visit buymeacoffee.com/RadioCore. RadioCore is the name of my studio. And RadioCore is doing work in the community with nonprofits and art organizations. We have podcasting students. I'm bringing my skill set in an effort to help other people who want to podcast, but maybe not in a position to do so. Maybe their area of expertise is something else. Let's tell stories and bridge the stories to lives. That's what I'm doing with my studio. We also produce 2 podcasts internally, 100 Watts in a Wire and Hour 73. Hour 73 looks at self-reliance as a lifestyle, talks about what's going on in the world of emergencies, emergency communication, preparedness, practical solutions, trying to build communities there. And I am set to talk a little bit about on that the next podcast episode about the Hawaiian fires, what's going on out there. There's also a Hurricane Hillary headed for California. By the time you're listening to this, it will be in play or have touched down. So there's plenty of things to talk about weather-related and being set here in a hurricane zone. I'm trying to share that with you as well. So look for that. If you listen to podcasts and you're interested, I want to talk to people who are survivors, share ideas, practical solutions. We're just getting started there, and imagine we will be cooking here more and as much as we can. Again, the priority is something else, to get my studio up and operating to help other people earn a living, that sort of thing. So buymeacoffee.com/radiocore. If you find value, it's cheaper than a real cup of coffee. Member benefits for 100 Watts and a Wire is that you can get discounts being a member from participating companies like MFJ, BioNO Power, Radio Waves, NI4L antennas. And a quick story there on NI4L. I talked to Chris. Chris is the NI4L. Makes some strong antennas, man. I talked to him about a balun. I have been a beta tester. Some may say a master beta tester, if you will. And I get all proud about that. And then I think to myself, damn, they're just making a clown of me. A master beta? Anyway, Chris sent me a 9-to-1 for a NFED antenna, and this was years ago. So I sent him a note. I'm thinking to myself, I mentioned a couple minutes ago about this coax that falls down in the middle of my yard. You can see it. No one has said anything. It almost looks like it could be a vine. It could be a rope for a swing. It could just whatever, mind your damn business type of thing. And most people haven't said anything. It's hanging from a banyan tree in my neighbor's yard, but it happens to drop down center right in the thing. And I'm thinking to myself, what I might be able to do out here is take about 75 feet of wire and kind of snake it through my trees a little bit to get 80 meters and do an NFED and see how that works for me. That's on my list, but like I've mentioned before, I'm not buying anything. So the Huntsville Hamfest, it sounds great, wonderful, cool, love it. Would like to be putting around there, looking at those old rigs, looking at the new innovations. But I'm not trying to spend any money. Your boy is the epitome right now of ham radio operator. A ham's ham is a cheap son of a bitch, and you know it. I mean, we spend some money on our radios now, don't we? We do spend some money on that antenna system. We will build some antennas. We are pretty cheap, though, because we keep a bucket of scraps around just in case we're going to need them. You knew. Can I get a witness? That's right. I'm thinking about when I get a little bit of dough, buying a little bit more wire and trying out an NFED with this NI4L and see what we can do. It's 9-to-1. We'll put it up there and run about 71 feet or a little bit more. I thought about a 160. I mean, I could probably snake around crazily, but I've never been the kind of guy who's been wrapped and bent and dog-eared around and drop it down, slope it over here, because I have no idea what that means. I'm usually just an inverted V kind of guy and move the obstructions out of your way. I can't do that here. I could probably be a little bit stealth-like if I went NFED. And we'll just have to see, man. I don't know. I'm not going to set up an external tuner. I'd prefer to have resonant antennas. I don't know what I said the first time. Definitely not a resident. But Maybe I did say it right the first time around. Anyway, I'm curious to see what I could do with an end fed here and what that means. If the SWR is all jacked up or higher than 3.0 and I can't tune it in the 7300 or the 7610, it really won't serve me. I mean, I could put a tuner in line. I just didn't really want to do that. I have a tuner in my Go kit, an LDG in my Go box, and I'm not trying to dismantle that, because if we have to bail out, bug out, and run from the water here for any reason, then I want it to be in there. I don't mind in the field as much using a tuner if I have to. But anyway, that's the situation here. So I wanted to touch base with you and see how things are going for you. What are you working on now? It's summertime. End of summer school has started back up. Been busy here with the children. Relocation is not only expensive and a pain in the ding-ding, it's also, I don't know. You got to settle in. You got to make sure your kids are doing all right with their mental health and all the things that go with it, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm pushing to make contacts on the ground here. Still working with the emergency preparedness team, and everything's going well with that. So I'll keep you posted as we roll through it. I want to hear about your projects and what you're working on, and I'll probably snap off another podcast here in short order as I put that question out on Facebook. Over 15,000 people chilling out over there, and I'll ask from time to time a question, a community question, just to see what we're working on, and most people will let me know, and they did. So I will share that with you guys to see what's going on. Take care of yourselves. Look after each other in this wild craziness in this world we live in. Think about planning and being self-reliant for long term. And if you're interested in that, look for Hour 73, a new podcast coming out of this Radio Core studio, along with 100 Watts in a Wire. Take care of yourselves. And by all means, if you can, please try and stay above the noise.
To join the 100 Watts in a Wire community, visit 100wattsindawire.com.